Hello, everybody. I'm Toby Shifsky with Kaplan Real Estate Education, and thank you for coming to Real Expert today. Today's topic, our title, Condo Community Living, Risks and Rewards. Our expert is none other than John Gora. I do have one note of correction for everybody here. If you would, take a look at John's email address. We made an error. I'm going to give it to you right here. It should be BDRAWER. There should be no JG in that, at att.net. So B drawer, as in bottom drawer, at att.net. Go ahead and make that correction. We'll have it fixed by the end of the show and make sure to give it to you again at the end of the time, because I'm sure you're going to have questions for John, and he is going to be able to take care of those questions for you. Let me bring John in. John, thank you for being here today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let me introduce you to our attendees. And so John is a past president and co-founder of the Community Association Institute Minnesota chapter, so CAI, and is the past president of the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, the MMHA. John is a Minnesota realty broker and managing partner for Lindus Properties, LLC in Minneapolis, Minnesota. John's depth and breadth of knowledge and experience in all aspects of community interest living includes association creation, so actually the development of the association, turnover, asset management, property management, zero-based budget development and forecasting, capital reserve studies, applied management systems, market research and analysis, business development plus ROI, team leadership and training, and building code compliance. John, thank you for being here today. I think your bio and resume says we've got the right person on the webinar today to talk all about condo community living, risks and rewards, because they're out there, John. And once again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Just a little bit of house cleaning for everybody. We have 30 minutes. And we are 3 minutes into it. We are going to move pretty fast, pretty quick. John has a level of depth and knowledge that we could go 3 days on this. And John and I talked before this webinar, and believe me, he could. We have a little kind of series of questions. I'm going to lead John through the questions. You're going to be able to participate, asking some of your own questions in the chat. Go ahead and do that. And we're going to get through this. We are by no means going to be able to cover everything, but everybody's going to walk out of here with a couple golden nuggets. And John, I'd like to start with golden nugget number one. Who lives in condo communities today?
Well,
how many?
Yes, I think nationally, there are probably 75 million people living in CICs today. Well, actually last year, that's in the last numbers I have. And in that, there's probably, 3.5 million condominium associations or cooperative living associations.
Okay, so let me give that back, because that's big numbers in there and kind of interesting numbers. So 3.5 million CICs, common interest communities. We're going to call them CICs through this webinar, but common interest communities. Common interest communities are those they are made up of condominiums are generally part of a common interest community, cooperatives, townhomes, right? All different looks, flavors, but generally it's a part where you have some real property that you own, described as a real property, and then there's some common elements or common interest community that surrounds that, and it generally has an association that manages those common elements. Is that correct?
That's correct. You typically have an elected board of directors that run your association, and within the board of directors, they elect officers, and then the officers most commonly hire a management company.
Got it. So the officers, there's a board of directors, there's officers, right? They're elected, and then what they will probably do, lots of them, many of them, will actually then hire out to a subcontractor to kind of manage those individual pieces and services. Is that right?
Correct.
Got it. Now here's a really big thing though. And this is for everybody on here who's going to be selling real estate, especially residential real estate. You said 74 million Americans? John, I think there's only like 330 million Americans total. That's like 26% of the population or something like that, if my math is right. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So So 1 out of 4 people are living in a common interest community. And
Yes.
so it would beg to argue that if I'm in real estate and I'm selling real estate, I better understand common interest communities, some of the risks, rewards, what are the responsibilities of the agents, what are the responsibilities and the risks and rewards for people buying into it or even selling out of it, right?
That's correct.
So let's do this. We have a lot of people on here. There's there's a lot of people here. And so they have a lot of differing levels of experience. We have a lot of people come in from the licensing classes that we're doing. We have a lot of people who John, would be your peer, been in the business for 30 years. And they go, my gosh, finally a webinar on my topic. And I'm here and I'm excited. And so I'd like to ask a polling question of everybody so we kind of get a gauge of your level of knowledge, everybody, because we're going to make sure that we target some information to you. Once again, very deep topic. We could go a long time, but we want to make sure we give you something to walk away with today. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a polling question. And everybody, this is where you get to play along. You're going to get to play along by answering our very first polling question. And everybody get ready. Here we go. How familiar with common interest communities, CICs, are you? How familiar are you? Answer number 1, man, I could write a book. I sell them as a regular part of my business. Pretty familiar. I'm vaguely familiar. Or, you know what? I know nearly nothing and hope this webinar fills me with knowledge. Go ahead. Tell us where you are. This is all anonymous. Nobody's going to see your name and what the answer is. So go ahead, play along, do real answers. I'm going to put up the results in a second. And that's good. All right. We got a really good kind of broad spectrum here of where we're at. We got a couple more people to fill in. I'm going to go 5 seconds and we're going to close the poll. They're still coming in fast and furious. Everybody take a moment, click on it, tell us where you're at so we can kind of gauge and gear this conversation to hit the audience. And believe me, even those people, I tell you right now, the smallest one is I could write a book and you will still get some nuggets out of this. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share all the results. All right. John, can you see this now? Who we have? Yeah, so look at this. We have about 3% of the people, I could write a book. Good for you. Love it. Hopefully you can participate in the chat with us. I sell them as a regular part of my business. We have about almost 19% of the people there. I'm vaguely familiar, about half the people. Love that. And then look at this. We got almost 26.5%. So over 1 out of 4 of the people here today, they know nothing about this, John. So this is all new. And we're going to make sure that you guys get a lot out of this presentation. All right. So, John, there's one more thing. I love it. Melinda, you're chatting in. Carla Crawford, Radford, you're doing it too. There we go. We got the screen back. Here's where we're at. John, there was one other thing about those 74.1 million Americans living in a CIC.
Yes.
What about the age, the demographic? What are we looking at there for people living in CICs? What are we seeing?
Well,
what's the trend?
Let's talk about the demographics. Currently, 50% owning a home, approximately, are over 65. So if you're going to be looking at a market, the people over 65 are economically capable and will be interested in purchasing a CIC in the near term. Now, the boomer generation, as we call it, will be and is deferring moving, which you can see in the current spate of lack of good listings in the metro areas. Is because many of the boomers are not moving out of their homes as they normally would be for a lot of reasons. But I think one of them is they don't see themselves giving up their independence anytime soon, which is a misconception, I might add.
Yeah, so they see the fact that they may be moving into a condo, a townhome, as giving up their independence of living in a single family home when in fact, there's a lot of rewards of living in a common interest community. There's some real advantages, and so like what are some of the advantages you see for people moving into a common interest community? Because it's like you said, there's a big pile of people, the boomers, who are sitting on trillions of dollars worth of single family real estate, like you said, 50% are 65 and older, and that's a big number of people that are your traditional, empty nesters, downsize, moving into a different home, different style of home. What are the advantages for those people?
Well, first, I want to say that there's about $60 trillion in value in CICs in the United States right now. And that's a significant amount of real estate. The market for CICs, we've covered the boomers part component. There's also the entry level, and they will be buying the conversions in the lower end, and then there are the wealthy ones that'll buy the $1 million conversion, the condos. And then there's townhome development, which is mostly the new construction component of CICs. There's a substantial number of townhomes being made, and one of the things the developer looks at, what is that?
You're famous now. They're all trying to call you. I don't know what's going on there. Is it your phone or?
See if we can get rid of that.
Yeah, that would be great. So let me just give it back to our attendees. There's a broad market of CIC participants, right?
Yeah.
John, what do you got going on there? You got something?
Yes, I do.
On the desk?
Don't call me yet.
Yeah, is there somebody hiding under there? Or,
Don't call me.
Yeah, because you talked about the entry level. So CICs, guys, and this is for everybody on. In fact, a lot of the new people, a lot of the old people, people who've been in business for a while understand this. It covers a broad range. I mean, you got everything from when you talk about conversions, you're talking about maybe like old apartment buildings converted to condos, and you're talking about smaller units, but more affordable, $160,000, $170,000, $200,000. And then you have, even some larger conversions or even larger new condos that are going to be $1 million plus. And it covers the whole spectrum. And then you talked a little bit about townhomes, and that the townhomes is fitting a specific segment right now of new construction. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between condos and townhomes a little bit later, but I hope to. So you're talking about a broad range of socioeconomic capacity in CICs. And once again, we know it's like one out of 4 people in America live in a CIC already. So
that's right. And out of that 1 out of 4, there's a small majority of that are females, and that's a separate component, but it's something that needs to be addressed. And we talked about the advantages of living in the CIC, and one of them is low maintenance. The only maintenance you do is in the interior of your unit, commonly. So many people are attracted to that. It frees them up from the daily and weekly and monthly chores. The socialization can be very high. If you are living in a communist community and you want to know people and have support of those, it's available. If on the same count you desire not to do that, you can keep to yourself just as well. The other thing is you got a higher level of security in the CIC. The basic, you don't have to have an armed guard. You are living next door to someone. You have a secured entrance with keys. Most commonly, you have a closed circuit television. So there's more security. You have more amenities. You have typically an under garage. You may have a community room with a kitchen for Thanksgiving and other holidays. They're cheaper to acquire on a per square foot than new construction of single family. Obviously, land is cheaper. They can be located much closer to shopping because of the zoning components of it.
But I mean, piles of advantages. I mean, if I look at this, you can see why, we got Nora says, listen, we got a lot of, Tampa Bay, mostly 55 plus communities, right? So age 55 plus, a little older, a little wiser, generally, a little more capacity, fewer mortgages, easier to move. I mean, there's a ton of advantages when you talk about that social network and then the maintenance being done.
Yes.
I'll just share one little story. I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law who bought a detached townhome, brand new, And I'm over there, and because I live in a house that everybody asks me, when is your house built? And I say 1927, 55, and 82, because that's all the additions that have been put on it. And there's maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance. And so I go over to their new place, and he sits down, and I said, how do you like it? And he says, you know why I like this? Because when I come home, there's nothing I have to do. And you know what? That's the truth of it. The maintenance is all done. One of the huge advantages of townhomes and community living. John, what are the risks associated with community living, though? Because there's always good and bad. What are the risks? And this is for our people that have been in the business for a while. I think they understand this. And then for a lot of people who are coming fresh into the business, what are the real risks of being in a common interest community?
Well, we can only compare that with risk of owning single family or renting. Obviously, if you're renting, you just say la vie, good enough. If you're in a single family home, if your furnace goes out, it's your bill. And you maybe have put money aside from it. 99% of the people do not do a capital sinking reserve fund for emergency repairs on their homes. They just simply hope they can have the money or they'll borrow it. In a planned community, a CIC, they have a capital fund, sinking fund, money in the bank that has been allocated towards repairs, anticipated repairs. So one of the advantages is that you have a limited exposure of an economic crisis.
As long as the association is being managed properly, correct?
Well, that's correct.
Is this part of the risk? I mean, the risk is because when you buy into an association, I mean, you don't get to call all the shots, do you? Aren't you? You're kind of moving into this democratic society that can kind of control how you use your property, right? I mean, fill us in on that.
Well, that's exactly right. FHA, for example, is the only organization that does some kind of a qualification as to how your association is run. And annually, an association would have to certify itself to FHA that would give you some level of comfort that it's being run correctly. And as you stated, when you buy into it, you're buying a democratically elected volunteer board that elects from the volunteer board officers who then decide to delegate to management. And that does not necessarily mean that it's going to be run within your viewpoints. They may elect to put a rule on a dog. They may elect to say, well, you can't have any loud music after 10, which is not an unreasonable one, but you are relegating yourself to a majority opinion.
Got it. So because there's rules, obviously, within an association, they're generally always created with rules, but when the association, is being run by elected individuals, rules can change. And so you become a part of this body. I always tell people, you're going to want to be active. You're going to want to be aware. You're going to want to know what's happening because the association has a pretty interesting power that they hold on to. And, I want to bring up a case with you, John. I want to think about the Surfside in Florida, the common interest community condo tower that collapsed. Right, a horrific event, people killed, horrific event. But as more and more clues come out, I mean, what do you think about that common interest community, that association management, and the risks that they were trying to deal with and the challenges that they had? Because to me, this looks like one of those risks of being a part of a common interest community.
The risk of a total building failure is not exactly very high.
Sure.
But it is a wonderful example of risk. You literally can lose life and structure if an association is not adequately run. And in this particular case, and I'm not going to throw a rock, but the morning after the building collapsed, there was a lawsuit filed. And the lawsuit's going to name the association's board and the association officers, the association man. In fact, they're going to name anybody that's even standing around. And that's the way it works. Now, the reason the probable reason that occurred is that Florida has a rule that every 40 years you have to have a review of the building. They had a review of the building that said you should make certain repairs. The board then sat around with the officers and said, this is going to be a major special assessment. Now, nobody likes to dig in their pocket. So they, and again, I'm not going to say this is factually, but they may have deferred that decision on doing a special assessment and, in essence, deferred that maintenance that potentially collapsed the building.
Yeah, I get there. We got to be careful how we talk about this because we're not there. We don't get it. But there are a couple of things we can talk about, and that is your board, your association has the right to, because I think what did you tell me? What is the job of the association?
The job of the association is to preserve the asset. Now, if you look at that, you get it. You preserve the asset and the safety. So those are the two preeminent things, and then you have tools, economic tools that you use.
Yeah. So the board's job is to preserve the asset and safety of the members of the CIC, right?
That's
Community
right.
Safety, and so and they have some power to do that. Like you said, this board, they were faced with improvements that needed to be done, and they would have to. They have the power, a unique power that allows them to put a special assessment on a property in order to pay for those improvements. And you can object to it as a homeowner, but here's the deal: you don't pay that special assessment, right? In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask a poll question. We're getting everybody to play along here. We're going to see if people know what happens if an association, right, says we've got to do this work. And you say, I don't want to, and they put an assessment on your special assessment on your property. Well, what authority do they have? I'm going to go ahead and pull this poll up and ask everybody to play along. This is where you experts get to really be the experts and go ahead and answer this question. And the question is, can an association foreclose on my property if I don't pay their special assessments? Go ahead and answer this question. Can they foreclose and take my property from me if I don't pay any special assessments that they assess on my property? All right. Look at, they're rolling in. Oh, we do have a winner. We have a very clear winner, but we have it's not as clear now. It's starting to, there it goes. All right. This is pretty fast, pretty easy. And this is, you might remember this from your licensing courses. And even some of you who live in CICs know the power of an association. When you throw into an association, right, this democratically elected board, they have power. And they have one really unique power. And that power is, as a matter of fact, they can take your property from you if you don't pay the special assessments. So there's your results. We got a whopping 85% of people got that question correct. And that's I don't think that's a huge surprise. But for those of you who didn't know that, right, that's one of the risks. You don't like what the association does? They have power. They have a real power. All right. I got a question for you. What is the CIC's, once again, I just want to, let's go on. What is the salesperson broker responsibilities and liabilities? Like when we talk about an agent's role in the purchase or sale of a property within a common interest community, what do you think the responsibilities and liabilities are for a broker or an agent licensee in that case?
We have to start off with the fiduciary responsibility. We have to treat the client as we would expect to be treated ourselves. And that implies some knowledge. State by state, we have requirements for disclosure, and they vary state by state. I will say that in Minnesota in 2017, we passed an addendum, a new law that says that you have to have adequate capital reserves. However, there is no state that I know of that actually reviews the necessary capital reserves. So you have a requirement that you should do it, but you don't have any enforcement. So it falls to the agent then to make a determination on the well-being of the association. So and you start off by looking at the documents. You've got the Articles of Incorporation, the Declaration, the bylaws, and rules and regulations that are updated annually. Then you look at the budget to say, hey, is this budget in conformance with the actual financial statement month to month? Are they in a hole? Do they have a lot of collections? If you have a lot of collections, that indicates a dissatisfaction within the association that you should pay attention to. So there are many things that a broker, an agent should look at but they are mostly included in the disclosure. That is huge. You've got, in this state, usually there's a disclosure period of review, let's take 10 days, that you have an opportunity to review all the documents. And if you have a question, you can research it and find better answers.
Right on. So, there's a pile of documents you get in those disclosures. And I'm going to ask a polling question in a second about one of them. But I think the key here, when you said it right at the very beginning, fiduciary responsibility. If you're representing a seller or a buyer, one of your fiduciary responsibilities, if you think all the way back to your licensing classes, there's the LC DORA, loyalty. What do you owe in a fiduciary responsibility? There's loyalty, there's disclosure, there's confidentiality, right? Well, one of them is reasonable care and skill. And if you're going into a CIC sale, either for representing a buyer or a seller on an agreement where you have fiduciary responsibilities, you're going to owe them a reasonable care and skill, meaning when at a minimum, you have to do what the law requires, which is follow the disclosure requirements for your state, right? And those should be spelled out on a state-by-state basis. The other part is, what are you really looking at? Could you really understand a statement, a financial statement from an association to know if they're healthy or not, with the collections, if that's healthy or not? There's a pile of information there that some may argue, because like for me, I did a lot of residential sales, John. I did a lot of residential land development. I had somebody come to me and say, "Hey, can you sell my gas station for me?" And my answer is, that's outside my expertise. I don't think I could do that kind of commercial deal with reason. I don't know what the soil tests would need to be done or what for selling a gas station. I would have to go find somebody that can do that. Maybe I co-listed with them and lean on them and learn from them. But I think I would be out of my reasonable care and skill taking that on. And I think people, if you're not familiar with association management and association properties, how do you feel about that?
Well, you're 100% right. If you don't know something, either be silent, tell them you don't know, or get somebody that does know. Those are really good axioms. Now, I will say that there's some wonderful opportunities here. Now, everybody knows you want to farm. You want to get new clients. You want to do that. In an association, just think of the people that have annual meetings, they have birthday parties, they have get-togethers, they have newsletters. All of those things would be available to an agent. If you want to take an association under your wing and learn about it, you could actually promote that and really work it yourself and have manifest opportunities. I mean, there it goes from anywhere from 4 units to 500 units, and well, there's planned unit communities too. So you could have a nice little pot to work with if you show your level of expertise. And if you want, give me a call, drop a line to me. We will talk, and all this information is available, and we'll get it out there.
Awesome. So John's just opened himself up as a resource. We're going to go ahead and put his email back up, this proper email back up. As a matter of fact, I think I'll drop it right in here again. And the whole title, the whole thing. No, that's the wrong title again. We got the JG in that one. I am sorry. Skip that, everybody. You got to remove the JG from John's email address. Sorry about that in the middle. But here's the deal, John. You just talked about a niche for somebody to become an expert on CICs. 25% of all Americans live in them. And if you wanted to be an expert, there are associations that are looking for people who really understand what's going on in their association. And you could be looking at a feed source for you for a long time if it's a big enough association, right? Covering enough units. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, asset management, asset preservation. There's nothing like somebody like a broker agent coming in and saying, this is the things you could do to help improve the real estate value of your community, because you know what it takes. Landscaping, hallway lighting, doorway identification. There's all kinds of things. Yeah. And individual pricing. Which way do you face? Are you facing the parking lot? Are you facing the lake?
Yeah.
You can bring things to the table.
Right on. So great specialization for you people just starting out, or even people who've been in it for a while, to really get in with an association, get in and be that local expert. That's because a lot of people don't like to do that. A lot of people don't like to dig in to all those, to really know. And if you do, that expertise can come to the forefront. I see it all the time in our marketplace. So John, there's a basic level of understanding of common interest communities, and I know we're saving it to the end, but I see a question from Jennifer, and Jennifer says, how can you get the documents from Condo Association without making an offer? How do if I want to become an expert, how do I get those documents if I'm just a real estate agent? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, Jennifer, there is. The condo documents have to be filed with the Registrar of Titles or the Examiner of Titles, whatever your state or county uses for title, because that is actually what you get when you buy something. And the documents will be on file. What would not be on file is the budget and the financial statements and any rule changes. However, the core will be available, and if you get inside the newsletter and look at other things, there'll be a resource for you.
Awesome news. All right, so we're almost down to the end here, everybody. We're going to wrap it up in just about 2 minutes. The common interest communities cover several different types of property, right? And it's confusing sometimes for people because the different types of properties, John, that I'm familiar with are cooperatives, condominiums, townhomes, all covered in common, and some single family developments are also part of common interest communities. They have an association that governs the shared common elements of a large development, right?
That's right.
So how do I know what I'm really buying? Because people sometimes intermix condo and townhome, and really you get a whole different bundle of rights depending on what it is you're buying. You know, a condominium, you're buying air rights, and in a townhome, you're generally getting land rights. And there's how do I? In fact, I'm going to ask the question here. Well, let's do this. I am going to ask a question. One last polling question for everybody. You get to play along. How do you really know what kind of property you're buying in a common interest community? There's a resource, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this survey up. I want everybody to play along if you can, and we're going to see who really kind of knows their stuff. And here we go. So the question is, what resource describes exactly what kind of property you are buying in a CIC? And it's not only what kind of property, but it'll also tell you what in the property, maybe what kind of limited common elements you have a right to. It'll tell you maybe if there's a garage attached or not, if you actually own that garage or storage locker. It'll tell you all of those things. Which resource? Is it covenants? Is it the property disclosure, provided at the time of sale? Is it the declaration, which is one of those papers that is filed at the county that John was talking about? Or is it in the multiple listing service? Which one of these is your absolute point of truth to know? All right. We got about 5 seconds left. They're rolling in, John. They're rolling in. It's a nice mix. 4. And John, I'm going to ask you the question. You get to answer for everybody. 3, 2, 1, 0. John, tell us the answer. What's the answer?
Let's work in reverse. First, the declaration is the primary component, and the property disclosure, it uses the declaration as its resource. A covenant would describe more of a title restriction that you'd have. You can't have a purple house in a single family. The multiple listing service, of course, is not adequate on common interest communities as far as any disclosures whatsoever. It doesn't talk about any of the important things. So if you're looking for a resource, it's the declaration.
It's the declaration. Right on. Awesome. All right. John, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I wanted to thank our attendees for being here. We're going to go ahead and put John's correct email address again in the text chat, everybody. If you have any questions about this, if you want to get a hold of John, he's got multiple resources for you to help you. Go ahead and do that. I want to say thanks again, John, for being here and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you much.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, everybody else, for being here. It's been another Real Expert, and have a great day.